being a part of this community that we're trying to build, as some people try to be, but then you go and say really dumb stuff. There are plenty of options out there of people who we could pick on for this, but in the end, they end up being the people who go to SHOT Show and get flipped off by freaking everybody there. Hey everybody, welcome back to Hard Time Strongman Podcast. Today we've got a special little episode for you.
Yeah, so when we first started this project, we had a listener approach us and ask for what he deemed as a skills matrix, a resource for guys to reference that lays out an entire skill set that someone can plug and play to a specific role. So one-to-one apply, say if you are a construction worker or a medical professional or any other skill that you have as a layman, how you can translate that to a martial context. In his words, his idea was how to apply different skill sets to a fire team. And as we've thought about that, as we've toyed with the idea and have developed this idea, we've been playing with an idea that is so much more broad, a concept that is more encompassing and really puts all of our podcasts, all of our passions, and really our mission on paper. And the best way I can think of to describe this is as a tree. And at the base of a tree, what holds the tree up, what nourishes the tree and makes the entire tree possible are its roots. Our roots for the Hard Time Strongmen being mentally tough, physically strong, and morally straight. So let's get into it. We have this as our second episode, but now that we have new blood in the project, I think that we need to touch on it again because our goals, our mission set has changed. It has broadened. And I think that we can do a little bit more justice this time. So mentally tough, what does that mean for us, and what does that mean for the strong man?
So for me, mentally tough is just the attitude of, you're encountering a hardship. You may be able to come out physically, spiritually, whatever. You still have to be able to get your mind around it, to get past the idea of, oh, hey, this is tough. This is hard. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. You have to be able to convince yourself that, yes, I can do this. No matter what the hardship is, I'm going to get over this.
Resiliency.
Exactly. Resiliency.
Yeah, when I think of mental toughness, so you always hear old guys talking about putting your nose to the grindstone, pushing through, seeing it happen, imagining something working, making it happen, whatever your goal, setting your eyes on the prize and getting it done. But as strong men, we know that we will face hardship, and we're seeing hardship now. We will see more hardship later. But being able to know that, being able to see that, and being able to carry on, not be swayed by, popular opinion, not be swayed by naysayers, but knowing what's right and, having the guts, having the courage and the grit to make that happen. To get after it day after day, even if you don't see the fruits of your labor right away, even if it takes a while to get that reward at the end of it, but to constantly be moving forward no matter your obstacle. Yeah,
and even when things go completely wrong, it's the old adage of picking yourself up by your bootstraps. Yeah. Being able to recover from whatever the hell you're going through and just keep going, right. Keep plowing ahead.
I think it's interesting because just as we're talking about it, I'm sitting here on the computer and I can look up, when you type in like mentally strong, you get a whole plethora of like all these books that claim they teach adversity, yet it's something that's not normalized in our culture now, and it's almost seen as toxic when you like raise your boys at a young age to be mentally tough. And it's also interesting because, again, coming from a military background for all of us, every branch in whatever military or every unit, they all have like these kind of ethos as their roots, as their foundation, and they all claim mental toughness or mental resilience is in there. Yet we've all known a lot of people who can't even like balance their personal life with their professional life, or like what you guys were saying, right? Like whenever it actually gets tough, you come home after 16 hours of work and you're still going to spend time with your kids, right? Because it matters. You're still going to get up an extra hour early or stay up an hour later to grind out a workout or whatever have you. So yeah, I think mentally tough is, to most people, not including the three of us, it's just words that you can look up on Google. But for Hard Time Strongman, it's definitely the starting point of the roots of our tree.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said about putting more into life, because you see so many people who are, there, but it's like lights out, nobody's home. They're going through the motions. They go to work, they go to school, they come home, and they veg on their phones. There's nothing going on. There's no drive. There's no goals. There's, no discipline. There's nothing, but besides just grit and carry on when things are hard, it takes mental toughness to not settle, to set goals and to push yourself further and farther. It takes a lot of grit to, a lot of mental toughness to say, okay, I'm exhausted. I hurt. I've been hurting for years, but I'm going to knock out this workout, because I'm not going to let my son, grow up with a father who can't, go on the trail with him or do whatever. It takes, a lot of fortitude, a lot of, mental toughness to sit down and not just let the day carry on, however it's going to flow, but to sit down with a plan and say, okay, this is what I'm going to, this is what I have allotted for every hour of the day. So I can make the most of the hours that I have in this day, because I'm not guaranteed tomorrow, and these are the goals. I want to, like a goal for me is I'm going to have a quiet time. I'm going to, have physical activity. I'm going to touch grass, no matter if it's rain or shine, I'm going to make these things happen, and having that discipline to go about and, accomplish these tasks, but to force yourself, even when you're tired, even when your day didn't go your way, even though, fill in the blank, whatever, to get out of your own way and to make stuff happen.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But I also liked what you said about, in your creeds, in the Infantryman's Creed and the Ranger Creed, it's such a foundational thing, mentally tough, physically strong, morally straight, transcending culture, transcending, societies. It is, a well-versed, a standard thing. Like, we know what we have to do, but we've, become so coddled. And like you said, it's almost, it's almost looked down upon to expect more of yourself.
Yeah. And I feel like us having this conversation and putting it out there, that it's awesome someone approached you guys and asked and said, hey, where would you kind of start this skills matrix? And like we said, at the foundation for everybody, the big three always come up, right? Like mental, physical, and morality. And it's very easy to just say it on paper, but I'd say the layman is not living it at all. Not living like all three, let alone two of the three.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like everything in life, it's very tough to walk the walk and not just talk, like put your money where your mouth is and actually do these kinds of things. It is hard. I got to admit that, especially in today's society where everything is like everything is just like the here and now, the consumerism and all that stuff. So it's instant gratification on everything that we do in life, but to do it with the idea of you have to put in work, you have to put in the time, the effort, the energy. It's tough for a lot of people. And I know all of us have fallen into that trap before of like not giving it 110%. I hate that. I hate that saying of doing 110% because you can't do more than 100% no matter what. But, for people to not do 100%, it's so easy. It's so easy to do the easy thing in life, to come home, to veg out on your phone like you were saying, and just check out. And they need to walk the walk.
Well, and just to limit yourself, as a father, I could, by today's standards, wake up in the morning, make myself breakfast, go to work, come home, and be done. I could be checked out.
Yeah.
I could say, well, wife, this is on you. You had the kids, and
right.
Off we go. And I could, in today's culture, I could be totally justified in that. But it takes more of me to come home, switch on for the kids, and play with them, and teach them, and take care of them, and take care of my wife, and then go to bed last.
Yeah.
It takes more. I think that's where the 110% comes in, because by whatever standard, by whatever culture, you can be done whenever you say you're done. But to be the men that we want to be, it takes more. And it takes more to realize that. It takes more to actually make that happen.
Absolutely.
But it is sad. It is sad to me that we've fallen away from this as a culture, because for anyone who's fallen away, then come back, who's been practicing, start practicing mental toughness, hitting the gym, becoming more physically strong, and then taking their quiet times, whatever religion, whatever faith you have, spending time in that and getting right in your heart and your head and your body. It's so obvious and immediate how much better you feel than if you just sit in front of your phone or medicate or veg out or whatever else. But it takes that extra effort to feel the way that we were made to feel.
Absolutely.
It's just that little bit that we've been coddled into that we need to break away.
I wouldn't even say that you have to put 110% anything, kind of like just like what Six brought up, because it is like it's like almost hypocritical, and people say you can't do it. And I know I had this conversation before I joined you guys with Barrett from Sunset Goons, and he said if you put 100% effort, actually 100% into every single thing you did for 1 year, everything from like your wake up routine to your meals, like your nutrition, to working out once a day, to spending 100% of energy and effort into your children when they're speaking to you and they need your time. You put 100% into your job that you may hate, or your side hustle, or your marriage, or whatever it is. But if you actually did 100% in everything, Barrett said, like, the world would be a lot better, and there'd be a lot more leaders and winners out there than the amount of losers and followers there are right now. So I don't even think it's like immeasurable. I think 100% of effort is very doable, but like you guys said, it's just not socially normalized now, and it's very easy to just fall into, I'm just checked out when I get home.
Yeah.
Because do you guys? Well, obviously I'm going to know the answer because the three of us are here speaking about it. But for anyone else, like, I know for everything I do, it's very methodical. It's very like almost on autistic OCD spectrum of like, even if I'm like cleaning something, I'm like, I'm not looking at my phone, I'm not focusing on something else, I'm doing that task 100% effort, and then once that task is done, I can focus on the next task 100%, right? And then that's how I'm able to put max effort into everything. But again, it's not normalized in our culture now. It's almost seen as like you're toxic, or elitist is the term that I heard a lot of.
Jesus, yeah, that's. I mean, personally, I tend to multitask quite a bit. I mean, I still get everything done, but you're right. It's not 100% focus all the time, but I still get every little thing done, but my attention is always everywhere at one time. So that's probably my weakest point. And
different stuff works for different people. I mean, like, I'm still aware when I'm doing stuff. And I know Barrett said it very well, and I'd never heard of this before. He calls them time blocks. So you give whatever task you have to do a time block. So it could be 15 minutes with 15 minutes when you come home from a long day, your wife needs to talk to you. You're like, hey, she has a 15-minute time block. That's what I'm giving you. I'm not on my phone. I'm not talking about my stuff. I'm listening to you for 15 minutes. And then, okay, what's next time block? I need to, do 20 minutes for this, or, an hour for this, or whatever the case may be. I just mean putting 100% energy into that time block, because 100% you can multitask, because I do that too. Like, I'll be driving, and if I have to do a phone call for us, right, I can take it from the car. I can, take it while I'm doing something else. But I'm doing, like, while I'm on that phone call, I'm focused on, like, whoever is on the phone call, even if I'm driving, let's just say, right? Or when I'm at the gym and I'm working out, I will not be on my phone checking stuff. I'll, like, put it on airplane mode just to have music on. So I'm focused on the workout. And that's what I mean in that sense is After hearing the time block like methodology, I've really done that. And again, we all wear a watch. We talked about it in the EDC episode. You don't even have to be a super weirdo like me where it's extreme, but you could glance at your watch constantly and be like, hey, what's my time block right now? How much time do I have to do whatever task? And I think if we normalize that for the layman, it wouldn't be seen as so elitist or so odd. People would be like, oh, that makes sense. I'm maximizing 24 hours in my day.
Well, I think what a lot of guys are missing out on is like actually planning out your day ahead of time. You know, I know a lot of guys
100%. Guys don't do that.
No, I mean, like the guys that are successful though, the night prior or the first thing they do when they get up, when they have their cup of coffee, is they'll go down on paper on purpose and say, okay, like you said, with time blocks or by hour, like this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm accountable for, and these are the habits that I'm trying to make, and so you can actually have accountability with yourself that you can reference throughout the day. Because once you start doing that, once you start planning out your day, like goodness sakes, man, it's like there's not enough hours. Like there's a surplus of hours because you're actually holding yourself to a standard and you're putting it on paper instead of just letting the hours slip away.
100%. And I feel like that ties into mentally tough, because then if you're following like these little examples we're talking about, all the other things that become out of your control or outside like stressors, it doesn't affect you if you're mentally tough, because you're like, oh, I've controlled everything else I can control. I'm super efficient at whatever task I had to do today or tomorrow or whatever, right?
Yeah. Well, knowing that you gave your 100%, whatever that amount was that day, whatever you had in the tank that you gave it, that's huge. That's huge for a pride thing. That's, huge, like you said, just keeping accountability of yourself. And, once you start building these habits and keeping yourself accountable for things, like you can set little, you can set your left and rights, right? You can set contingencies for yourself. So I have to commute for work, so I don't have time where I can, work out at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, in my garage. So I have to work out at work with, byweight exercise. If I don't set up a workout for myself ahead of the time, I'll just get lost and, blown away by my work day naturally, right? I'm at work. But also, I set for myself a contract that before I get into or out of my car, I have my sandbag in my trunk, and I have to do a specified workout before I can get in or out. And so even if I completely, screw the day over and I don't do any workouts, I still have to do that before I get into or out of my car. I'm still active throughout the day. And I live an active lifestyle, outside with my boys or my wife, so it's setting these things up so that you're, mitigating your chance of failure.
Do you do those workouts with that sandbag everywhere? No matter what?
Anywhere I'm with my car.
Do you get a lot of weird looks when you go to the grocery store?
That's awesome.
I get so many weird looks at Buc-ee's.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I do. But it's a contract. I have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I do one similar, Seven, where if I can't do the physical workout that I'm doing, or the scheduled workout, let's use that term, either because again, everyone's heard the episode already. I've been paying for Softlead for years. If I can't do the scheduled workout that Softlead has prescribed, I do a different one, and the different workout that I do depends on the time. If I don't have time, I will do every hour, or if I have time, every hour on the hour, I will do 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, no matter where I am. And I've done that literally beside my truck. Like you said, I'm in the grocery store and I'm like, oh, my watch is going to go. Got to get to the truck and do 25 push-ups in the parking lot. People can laugh at me all they want. I'm like, I'm holding myself accountable. The other way I've done it too, for normal people, when you're at home with your family, or because my children are older now, and if they want to play video games, I used to do with my son, where every time we'd play a video game and we got killed, we used to bang out push-ups together as respawn deaths. That's what we did.
Nice.
So I normalized it. I'm like, yep, got to do it.
That's awesome.
That's the payment.
Yeah, I've got a little boy, so I can just do presses with them.
Press them.
And they think it's great.
Yeah, exactly. But again, this is leading to the mentally tough. It's like when you're tired from your workday, from life happening, from, you got in a car accident, or, like your boss didn't pay you, or whatever it is, whatever stressors, okay, you controlled what you could, you did 100% effort, no matter what, you're still banging out sandbag push-ups in the parking lot, or you're like me at the grocery store doing push-ups in the aisle, or whatever it is, but you're still doing it because I'm mentally tough. Like, we are all mentally tough here.
Yeah, I mean, and it's gonna suck. Like, and that's part of the mental toughness that you just got to get over. Like, you have to get over that
It
mental
becomes
block.
easy
It's
though
gonna
when you
suck.
do it enough.
Yeah,
But
but
when
like
you do it
I've
enough
been
though, it's like it's normal now.
yeah, but I mean, I've gone off an 8-hour shift, and I had to stay late because I had a crappy provider, and like I'll be the last one out of the parking lot. I'll just be sitting there in the dead silence, knocking out my curls and tricep presses. Like, God, I hate this. I just want to go home. But I love it because I have that pride that I set myself a standard and I'm keeping it. Like if nothing else today, I'm gonna keep my word to myself.
Exactly.
And that's huge. If you can't keep your word to yourself, then you're in a really rough place. Really rough
Honestly,
place.
I would argue too, if you can't even like square away yourself mentally, you shouldn't even be focused on trying to help other people. You're useless to other people at this point. You're more of a detriment than an actual asset. Like, I wouldn't want you on like my military patrol, let alone like the baseline, let alone helping me hold up my house. I wouldn't want you if you don't even have that squared away.
I'd say that for all three.
All three of these,
all three that make up these roots. If you don't have this foundation, if you don't have these roots dug in, you're a liability. You shouldn't be thinking about what AR or what Glock you should buy, or what style of ruck. Like, no, you need to get your physical body squared away, get your head squared away, and get your heart squared away. If you don't have those things, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and again, like so many other military units throughout history have had these like baseline ethos, right? Mentally tough, physically strong, morally straight. We're just trying to bring it back to the core fundamentals so that the next generation, or our generation now, can remember that like these are the roots. This is the base where you should start.
Yeah. I mean, think about if like every single Joe Blow off the street prioritized this. I mean, it'd be a completely different world.
Yeah, we wouldn't be getting looked at in the parking lot doing my hourly workout or your sandbags. This would be normal. People would join in.
Yeah. Like, hell yeah, how many steps you doing?
Exactly. People
let me buy in.
Like, right on, brother. Let me buy in.
Goodness, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me buy in.
Wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
It'll become that. Physically strong.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you guys have to say for physical strength? Because we want to focus on things that not fad workouts, because anything that we say for guidance is going to be obsolete in a year or two. But what's your word on that?
Doug and I talked about it. People loved CrossFit at first, and then everyone's like, it's actually detrimental to your health, so they like went away from CrossFit, right? Or people have this idea that if you're going to like a Globo gym thing, you have to do a bro bodybuilder workout. But is it actually applicable to what we're talking about being a prepared man or a hard man? I'm like, well, it's not really, because I've seen gym rat dudes in the military, and I'm sure you guys saw them as well. They literally fell out of like a 2-mile march. These guys were useless. They had huge biceps, and like their quad, like that giant V in their quad looked awesome in photos doing PT, but these guys couldn't perform. So I think physically strong is, again, not even how much you could bench or how much you could squat or how much you could deadlift. That's another argument in itself. But can you actually perform a task?
It's the functional.
And like, I'll quote Pat McNamara. He always says it. You got to be able to like kick someone's ass, save someone's ass, and then like self-preservation, like the longevity, right? As you get older, you don't want to be looking like, you're falling apart, or like you said, Seven, you want your kids to look at you and, be like, yeah, I want to be like my dad. I don't want to become, like your dad in the bad way, where you're super unhealthy and, not mentally tough and definitely not morally straight. Then you've raised the wrong man. But I think physical is, it's very easy for people to jump on the side of, well, I'm going to do bro workouts, or I'm just going to do CrossFit. I'm like, we're not saying either of those are bad or either of those are good. I think somewhere in the middle would just be, can you lift your own body weight? Can you save your family? Could you carry your child?
And that was the main argument that we had in the Army too. People thought it was always misogynist that like we didn't want women in combat roles. Well, I looked at it this way. Like, yes, she could probably pick up her own body weight, but if I go down, can she pull me? I mean, when I was in Afghanistan, I was walking around at 200 pounds. That didn't include my gear, my weapon, my ammo. Like none of that. I was probably walking around at like 270, 280 pounds easy. And there's no way someone that's like 120 pounds soaking wet is going to drag me to cover. There's no way.
There's even men that can't do that though, so that's the thing, right?
Agreed.
It's like, yeah, there's men that can't do that.
And I'm not saying that all women can't do that. Like there are a ton of just awesome women in there that could do those rolls, that could actually pick up a 300 plus pound dude over their shoulder and just chug off with them for like 6 miles. You know, like there are women out there that can do that, but from experience, 7.
They're
how
the
many,
minority. Yeah,
how
they're the
many of
minority.
those did you
Yeah.
see? Like, even you know, Matt, how many did you see?
My kind of thing with functional fitness, though, is, you know, whatever your standard is, you need to be able to do what you ask your body to do. You know, if you're a family man, you need to be able to put your family on your back, or, you know, help out on the homestead, or do whatever task that you're charged with, right? Because nothing's worse than, you know, having a job to do and not being able physically to do it. And that only compounds when you have, you know, injuries. So, like you said, the longitudinal, you know, like the long term, the sustainability of, you know, of this physical fitness, because, you know, like I have young boys, they're not going to slow down at all. You know, they're only going to get bigger. So, finding something that works that you can stick with, and, you know, that does the job that you need it to do, but not maxing out on cardio and not being able to lift your own body weight, not maxing out on, you know, like you said, those gym bro workouts, and then you can't run a mile, but finding something sustainable that, you know, that's more a well-rounded approach.
Yeah, and again, because I know people are going to ask, they're like, well, what is that? Like, what's defined as that? And I know just a generic like fitness answer would be, and everyone has seen this, like scientifically it's been proven, if you can bench press your body weight, squat, what is it, like 1.5 times your weight, and deadlift 2 times your weight, they're like, you are stronger than 95% of humans.
I was gonna say, isn't it like the 1% or 5% of
people can't do that? Yeah, and then again, in our world of you know, being prepared, or coming from this ideology that you have to get in a gunfight because that's all everyone wants to hear, I'm like, okay, you could do all 3 of those things, but if you can't run a mile in like sub 6 minutes, you're pretty useless. If you can't ruck 20 miles at all, like not even in an acceptable time, like you physically can't do it, you're useless. You can't pick your body up off a cliff, useless. If you can't carry a woman from safety, useless. So again, these would be like,
well, we've all seen that meme, you know, dads don't be the guy carrying the sandals.
Yes.
You know, during the flooding, and there was I think it was like a guard soldier or something carrying this dude's wife and child, you know, through the water while he was carrying a sandal in a bag. It's like, you know, no, like, do better.
Yes. Yeah. What was that other thing we were talking about too? I guess in our last dad episode, we were talking about at the end, you know, be the man that your kids think you are, right? Or be the man like you want.
Yeah, be the man that your kids think you are.
Yeah, so physical strength is definitely one of them, right? Because everyone was that kid where like they wanted their dad to be able to do whatever it was physically as a feat. So it's no different now that we're talking to everyone who's as adults. Like, well, you could be that man. It's pretty simple. Just start doing it.
Yeah.
This week's episode is brought to you by FieldSeats.com. FieldSeats.com is an e-commerce, federally licensed firearms dealer. They provide virtual reviews on brand new firearms, and at the end of the review, they give away the firearm being reviewed to a lucky attendee. Each item reviewed is given away for free as part of their promotion for purchasing what they call a field review. Currently, they've got field reviews up ranging from $20 for a brand new Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 2.0 to $65 for a new Galil Ace Gen 2. Each review is limited to around 38 people, so your chance of winning the giveaway are so much higher. Use code STRONGMEN to receive 10% off your entire purchase at fieldseats.com. Be sure to check out their Instagram and Twitter at FieldSeats if you want to go ahead and give them a follow and see what future items they have coming down the pipe. Thanks for your attention, and let's get on with this week's episode.
All right, and then morally straight. So your values, your ethos, your faith, you know, how you live your life, how you conduct yourself, you know, your integrity, your accountability. That's another really huge one that isn't talked in the the preparedness and the tactical community, because not sexy to talk about and throw on IG, but without this, and these all feed together, right? Mental, physical, spiritual, this all feeds together and rounds out the foundation. But without this, you don't know, or you can't act on it, what's right and wrong. How can you do good if you don't know what good is?
So there was a quote from, honestly, probably a pretty crappy movie, Shooter, where he's been captured and the dude's talking, and whoever it was that was overseeing this meeting was just like, Senator, or I don't even know if he was senator, but whatever. He addressed the guy. He's like, your moral compass is so f***ed up, I'd be surprised if you can find the parking lot from here. Don't be that guy. Like, be the, like you said, man, you gotta walk the walk. You can talk all sorts of stuff, and yes, it's not sexy to be morally straight. It's a matter of doing the right thing, even when no one's watching you. Do the right thing. It's not that hard. It's actually harder to do the wrong thing a lot of the times than it is to do the right thing, because when you do the wrong thing, you have to continuously do that to cover for yourself if you get caught. And then you're lying, and then you're making up stuff, and yeah, you're essentially shirking responsibility. Mm-hmm. And that's not who we are. That's not who we should be.
And all it is pushing the responsibility back. To do the right thing, you need to have the moral courage to take care of things on the front end.
Yeah.
Well, and what we're pushing, how we're trying to change the culture and trying to push people to raise the standard, we're trying to build leaders. And people look to their leaders in everything, right? So they're going to look at you, and they're going to see if you make the bad call, and they have to live with it. You could come up with 1,000 different scenarios, technically or tactically, civilly, whatever. But if you don't have that foundation, and you just roll with it, and you make the wrong call, or you do the wrong thing, the bad thing, whatever it is, and your people have to live with that, or you have to look your people in the eye after you make that decision, then this all becomes really, really, really fast.
And it could be as simple as being a part of this community that we're trying to build, as some people try to be, but then you go and say really dumb stuff. There are plenty of options out there of people who we could pick on for this, but in the end, they end up being the people who go to SHOT Show and get flipped off by freaking everybody there. It's not the person that
you can say the ATF. That's okay.
Well, I mean, the ATF is one of them. Don't be the ATF. But there's also, the gun bros out there who are just putting their feet in their mouth time after time after time, and they think people respect them or like them, and then they go to some public event like this, and the vast majority of them are just flipping them off, cursing at them, like basically trying to excommunicate them from the community, voice their displeasure about the stuff they've been saying. But it's almost like their moral compass is so bad that they can't find the parking lot. They're seeing all these signs, and they're just continuing on with their path, thinking that they're still getting everything that they need. And that's the bad part.
Sorry, man, you're being really ambiguous. Are you talking about like Kennedy or Meyer or Glover?
Yeah. Kennedy, Meyer, Glover, all the above. I don't care if you're a Medal of Honor winner. Like, if you put your foot in your mouth the way he has in the past, like, dude.
On a serious note, though, so something applicable right now for people: accountability and integrity.
Yeah.
Have people who can keep you accountable, who know your heart and know the right thing, and keep you accountable, keep you, in your left and rights, and have moral integrity. If you mess up, fess up to it.
Yeah.
Directly, and get it figured out. So, a very, very small thing that we do at Hard Time Strong Men is every time that we put out a class that isn't our opinion, that is actual like objective, like factual information, or from someone that isn't us, we put out that reference, we put out that source,
right?
And that's to keep us accountable, so people can check that source and see if we're talking out of our butt, and it is with our integrity. It's not our idea, it's not our information, we're just presenting it to people, so we're not owning that. It's not ours. That's just a small thing that we do, but it can be a small thing like that for anybody in any context.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. And of course, if we say something wrong too, we want to know about it. We'll fess up to it in the next episode. Guaranteed. We've done it before.
Yeah, and I think all three of these are like them being the roots. They feed into each other, and there isn't one like I wouldn't like looking at these on paper. If you were to see them, I wouldn't say physical strength is more important than mentally tough, or morally straight is more important.
No.
Because there's people who are really good at one of these, like we said earlier, but they suck at the other two. And we'll take I don't know, let's just take physical strength as an example because it's the easiest one that people can relate to. They could be super fit, but they're a terrible father, a terrible human. They have no morality. Right. Or the other side could be someone who's super involved in his community, really good, like with his religious beliefs, volunteers, goes to church, all that, but he's like a walk-in heart attack waiting to happen, and he's like the weakest person mentally you've ever met. I'm like, well, he may be super morally straight, but I don't want him because he's terrible at the other two categories. So it's just trying to be well-rounded in all three. And again, it's very easy to say you are on paper, but to actually live and breathe this, like Six said, like it takes effort every day, 100% effort all the time to never sway out of these categories. And yeah, regardless if you're religious or spiritual or not, I feel like every man or woman listening to this should have their own ethos, their own values that they're never going to sway on, right? And like we could even talk about like, the COVID thing. People got fired to not get vaccinated because they didn't agree with it, right? Yeah, and we've talked about this openly. I'm like, and people were like, "Oh, you're stupid," or people have just done it because it's the norm, or what's another big one that everyone's doing now or not doing? Oh, that ATF, what's that thing you guys have? That
complying.
Yeah,
the
pistol brace thing, right? Exactly. So like whatever it has been throughout latest history, all the way back to the dawn of time, you've had to be like able to look at yourself morally and be like, okay, I don't care what the norm's doing. This bothers my ethos. And I honestly feel like a lot of people don't even like, they couldn't even write down on paper what their ethos would be, which is sad. So I think that'd be a starting point for most people. Be like, hey, what are your values? What is something you're never gonna kind of sway on? And I know from personal experience, we did this one military exercise, just this one specific event. They made us read an article, and the article was a scenario that we were like a search and rescue team, and we had to save X amount of people in a certain amount of time frame, and you couldn't save them all. Like some of them would die, and they gave you a little bio on each person that we could save, and we had to do it individually, and then we had to present it to the group, and you could see people's morality was so different on who we would save. Like there was people who would save one woman versus another woman, or one man versus another man, and then to actually put us in this scenario where we had to like have a real conversation about it, it was uncomfortable for people on the team because we didn't realize that, oh man, I'm like very different than you morally, even though I'm on your team and we've been doing this job forever or whatever. So I feel like this is something that people think they're very in tune with. Again, because I'll say religion, they use that as the cover, right? They're like, well, I'm religious. I go with my family. I'm morally straight. I'm like, well, are you? Are you actually? If I asked you to write down your values, could you tell me what they are?
Well, regardless of religion, are you living into that?
Yeah, are you actually doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't tell someone that, can they tell?
Yes.
By your actions.
Yeah, and it's just one of these things.
That's kind of a gut check.
Yeah, it's one of these things that people don't want to hear. People don't want to hear anyone talk about this, let alone the three of us, because like you said, it's not sexy. It's not normalized. There's no way to buy into this. Mm-hmm. Like you physically can't buy a product from us, and we're like, hey, now you're good. You're good for physical, mental, and morality. Yeah. Like, well, we're not. There's nothing you can do to buy into this, other than the work.
Yeah. Well, exactly. You buy in with the sweat. You buy in grind. With your lifestyle, with the grind. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so something that we talked about, as we've been forming all this and pouring more time and energy into this project is. If you don't have ethos, if you don't have a mission that you can point at, that you can point to, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I act this way. This is the sounding board that I decide my actions off of, then you're going to be swayed. by someone or something that is stronger or louder than you are, right? So our mission to train up a better class of man, that is our mission statement. That's what we set out to do with every decision, with every, business move, with every, with everything that we do, right? Our ethos, we protect and preserve human life. We keep our integrity, we keep accountable, and we're always learning. If we didn't have that, if we didn't have that set out, then we could just, blow off and be another merch company, or we could put out bad information and get people killed, or we could, sell out or whatever else. But, we did the work on the front end and we're living it out. And, something that we've referred to on the podcast before, rules of three, right? There's three of us. If someone gets out of the line or starts acting outside of our ethos or our, mission statement, then, you have two people that keep you accountable to pull you back in and keep you on track.
Absolutely.
And that's, like you said, it's so hard to live this out, but it's so much harder not to. So, you want to come back and you want to go back into, into these habits, into this way of life, because it's just better.
Yeah. And like you said,
we build everything off of this.
And like you said, it's much easier to do this when you actually have people trying to abide by the same thing who can actually gut check you. When you get out of line, it's much easier for someone to check you back into where you were and for you to check them as well. It just makes everything 10 times easier.
Yeah. Well, and this is so incredibly important. We build everything off of this. Without these roots, without this foundation, nothing else happens.
Right. Same thing with building a house. If you have a terrible foundation, that house is not going to last very long.
You're going to see it fall. Yep.
Yeah, and just like you guys said earlier, it doesn't matter other skills within our tree or other gear you have or don't have. If you don't have the roots locked in, it doesn't matter. Everything also just kind of fall apart.
Exactly. If you have rotten roots, that tree is going to fall.
Yeah. And I'm glad we started it by kind of teasing at this, that this is something we're going to be continuously working on presently to give something back that people can use as a reference, as a starting point. But I feel like this just needs to be beat into people, that this is, no matter what's happening in your life, these are the three you need to always reference, right? Are you actually still mentally tough? Are you physically strong? Are you morally straight? Because just like you said, Seven, anything outside of that could sway you. And I know Six was talking about all the sellouts in the Instagram world. For me, whenever I'd look at my virtues or my ethos that I hold personally, I'd be like, there's no amount of money that you could throw at me where I'm going to sway off that list. And people probably would not agree with me because, again, they don't have their own set of values or virtues actually written, or let alone that they're living it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, going back to your comment about COVID, right? So I lost my job.
Yeah, because you refused.
During all the vaccination shenanigans, right? But as a healthcare provider, it's my job to look out for my patients, right? To stand up for their autonomy, their patient autonomy, with procedures, with anything. And if I can't do that for myself, then I'm not fit to be able to do my own job, right? And so that's something that I wouldn't compromise on. And I had guys who I worked with, my last day, come up, shake my hands, like, I respect what you're doing, but I think you're an idiot. And it's like, I think you're an idiot too, man. At least, I've had other guys like, oh man, I love that you're doing that, but I've got a family. And it's like, well, what do you think I have?
It's because at the end of the day, though,
that's just
you are morally straight, and that's the difference, right? People, like I said, they're going to sell out for fear of loss of job, or like we said, the Instagram people get offered X amount of money, they're going to say whatever, even if it disagrees with them. Or I know for me, and I've said this on a couple other people's platforms, I left when they told us we were going to support the RCMP and go to Ottawa and smash civilians. And I was the only one who said, I'm like, my paycheck is not worth my morality. I'm out. And I quit mid-shift. Terrible employee, literally during shift. Just walked out, left everything in my locker. Because I'm like, you're not swaying me. I'm not a part of this anymore. But a lot of people, like you said, right, would totally disagree because they think of the financial commitment they have to their family. I'm like, yeah, but could I go home and look my children in the eyes after I went to Ottawa and smash people for what they believed in? Like, no, that's not even, like, there's even a question. You couldn't pay me enough to, like, question that.
Well, I think the last episode that we all, the dasode, right? So fake it till you make it, right? So if you went out and did that, would you be, buying into, would you be acting out the man that you want to be?
No.
Because I'm a firm believer that you can always change, always. We are constantly making ourselves, right? So can you go and look your kids in the eye, your wife in the eye when you act outside of that? No, you can't. Can you look in the mirror and look yourself in the eye? No, you can't. So there's your answer.
Yeah.
And I will say this, man, like, Nomad, there needs to be more cops like you.
Well,
like,
full disclosure,
more people were
sorry, dude, they all quit.
Sorry.
Yeah, true.
I was just gonna say they all quit, but full disclosure, because I hate cops and I'll just chirp them. I was only a peace officer, not a police officer. It's a different title, but yes. But you are right though, dude. There needs to be more people, but there wasn't, because I was the only guy, and I think I told you this, man. I was the only guy on my shift that quit. The only one out of like 600 guys. People said I was crazy. They're like, "What are you gonna do? You have kids?" And then I'm like, "I'm gonna go home." Super simple, and I'm gonna burn this uniform when I get home, because I'm not breaking, like, morally. But again, outside of a uniform context for normal people, if people just had their own, like, morality guidelines, there'd be better humans out there. They wouldn't be swayed.
Oh yeah,
right.
No,
it's the passivity, man.
Yeah.
The passivity is.
How many nurses got fired for you,
cancer.
7, where you worked? Were you the only one?
Oh, I was the only one.
There you go. 2 peas in a pod. You and me. Yeah, you were the only one who got fired because
paycheck over that.
Yeah, you refused.
Well, and that's the same thing that you said. Like, oh, well, what are you going to do?
I'm going home.
I don't know,
not
but not that.
Yeah, and guess what? I have zero regrets about it, and I'm way better human, like, father, because I'm not wearing a uniform now. Because my morality was tested, but I didn't sway. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I could drive home with my head high. I could walk through my door and not be ashamed, because I did what I thought was right.
Yeah, and along those lines too, it's funny now that it's funny now that all this information that was at one point, like, deemed a conspiracy, and people were shouted down and all that stuff, it's now coming out to be true. What do you know?
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and again, it's just these weird things that people now, men now, in our culture are not mentally tough, not physically strong, not morally straight. Because if there were people like this, there would have been 50 guys like 7 who got fired for not wanting to, do whatever he was told to do without questioning. Or there would have been 50 people like me who were like, I'm not smashing civilians because I was told to. That's not what I'm here for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's just like when we were in too, like, we had the responsibility to not obey unlawful order.
Exactly. Yeah. And I honestly think, 6, it should be easier for people when you're not in a uniform capacity, because you don't have someone other than yourself, like 7 said, who's literally, like, it's you holding yourself accountable. You don't have some larger organization testing your morality daily. You don't have someone testing your mental fortitude daily, and like an outside factor, right? It's you versus you for these 3 categories. And that should be, like, so motivating to people to be like, man, I could be the best version of myself because I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday. And these 3 fundamental roots, like, it's super easy to follow them. You just got to put in effort every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and, stepping back a little bit to the gear thing, once you have these 3 on lock,
everything
then
else
it doesn't
is
matter
easier.
what the gear is. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out, like what we were talking about with, having a set up skill set, or a stacked skill set, right? Doesn't matter if you give someone a $500 ruck or a Molly Alice rig, you're gonna figure it out. If you have the know-how, if you have the capability, you're gonna make it work. Same thing with these foundational skills. If you have a firm foundation, you can make it work.
Yep. Doesn't
matter what we give you.
Yeah, and I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't understand looking in on why it's so normalized now culturally, because it must be fear-based for me, but I've never swayed on the physical side, in uniform or out, but, like, I would be terrified if I couldn't do something physically. either like with my family. Forget the prepared side. Like just I can't do an activity because I'm so out of shape. Like that terrifies me.
Yeah.
I'm so afraid of that, and I've never swayed. I'm still training to the level I was when I was in,
Yeah.
because I'm terrified of becoming like that. So I just, it's hard looking in, or looking like from the outside, I guess, on people where this is like alien talk to people that we want everyone to be, mentally tough, physically strong, morally straight.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know anything else. And like my kids don't know anything else. It's totally normal to them.
Yeah. Well, and I did fall away from that after I got out,
Same.
I was
But
terrified.
like I said, it was a horrible, horrible experience. And I'm never doing it again.
How
Yeah,
long did
you
you
know,
fall off of it?
And
Like,
it
how
was,
long did you go?
I'd say like a year.
Did you
And
feel
then it was
terrible?
like,
Did you feel
crap,
terrible at
this
the end of the
isn't
year?
going away. I felt
the worst?
Yeah, I felt absolutely terrible. And granted, this was while I was still like unpacking and processing all of the military stuff, right? Because I was supposed to die while I was in Afghanistan. That was the whole deal, right? I was ready for that. I wasn't ready to come home and then be like totally fine. So like having to unpack and like get all that out of the way, then it's like, oh crap, I'm stuck with this body that's not 215 pounds of I'm gonna kill you. This is a body that if I let it, it's gonna fall away.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna get weaker. And so when that happened, oh man, I felt horrible. I felt horrible every day, and I was ashamed.
I'm terrified of that.
But then I got over myself and I started working at it. And like I said, I don't have time to work out in my gym in my garage anymore, based off of the workplace I'm at now. But that's not a valid excuse.
It's not.
To have a body that doesn't serve you. So what do? I work out every single day in my office with bodyweight workouts because I don't have an excuse. I have a body. I can work it out. It doesn't matter where. Yeah.
It's kind of like that long hike that we took at the bachelor party. Like, I got about halfway through that and I was like, holy shit, I'm out of shape. I need to do more cardio, man. Like, what the heck? That was the gut check. And from there it was like, okay, it's been 4 years. I need to get back into this. So that's where I'm at now. It's like, I'm going to right this ship and I'm going to get back to where I was, if not better. That's my goal, is not to be where I was. I want to be better.
Mine was just fear driven.
That's how it always should be.
Like at first, and I know that's like the wrong message,
Yeah.
but I was afraid to not perform at work because it would be like I saw out of shape people not perform, and then their actions could get people killed. And then it evolved into moving with fear. Now it's like purpose, because like I said, as like a father, I look at my kids and I'm like, okay, I could kick most people's ass, like confidently. I could like be okay and like get them to my vehicle or whatever the case may be. Or I talked about this with Doug on the last podcast, and Doug had a good laugh. I said my daughter specifically, if we're out in public at a restaurant and she sees like someone look like Jabba the Hutt, she'll look at me and be like, I'm glad you don't look like that. And she'll say it loud enough for that dad to hear. And I laugh and say, yeah, I'm really glad I don't look like that too. But it's, confirmation.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I want my boys to be proud of me. Like, doesn't everybody,
Yeah.
And, I've taken on this role as first, as a husband, and then as a father. Like, I'm charged with your safety. So I need to be at a place physically, mentally, spiritually, where I can provide for your safety. That is my job. That is my responsibility. And, I have 2 boys, right? Have you ever seen, or did you ever watch Yellowstone?
Crush Yellowstone.
Yes.
Beth
Love that
is
show.
my secret love.
Yeah.
Rip. Yeah.
There ain't no fighting on this ranch. You want to fight somebody, you come fight me. I have 2 boys, and just looking at my genetics, they're going to be big.
Monsters.
Yeah.
They're going to be big, big boys, and I got to be able to handle that, So
Awesome.
It all ties together, man.
Do you guys find
It all
yourselves
ties together.
in line with these 3? Do you find yourselves where, and I do this, and sure it's elitist, if people don't line up with those 3, I won't even talk to them or socialize, or like they're not worth my time in my social circle. Do you do that, 7 or 6, or do you find it like it's easy to judge people if they're not mentally tough, physically strong, morally straight?
I give people slack, but like, it's like asking.
Does it hurt you to give them slack though?
Any Joe Blow off the street. It doesn't hurt me to give them slack, but it's also like, I'm not going to come to them for advice or for, like for their for their
Okay.
expertise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's elitist, but also, if like I'm trying to raise up the standard for everybody, if you're not holding yourself to the same standard that I'm holding myself, then that's an issue.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when I bring you in the circle, right? In a the community loves saying tribe now, but if I bring you into my tribe, into my circle, my community,
You better bring
like,
something to the table.
And I lay
Yeah.
on you the exact same responsibilities and the duties that I lay on myself. So like, I need to know that you got my back and my family's back, because darn well I'm going to protect you and your family. I need to be able to count the same for you. That seems like a pretty simple transaction.
What about you, Six?
So
No, it's the same thing. Honestly, like in the past, like I gave people way too much slack. I looked at my friend circle back then and where it is now, dude. I'm so happy that I held everyone to the same standard as me, if not more. Because where I was not great. Back when I was younger, of course, lost my mom when I was 20. So right before I turned 21, so I became an alcoholic for a while and did a lot of pretty dumb things. But since, righted that, and, I looked at my friends who were just doing nonstop, like hardcore drugs, drinking all the time, having sex with whoever, whenever, of varying ages, which was a little worrying to me. And it just got to the point where I was just like, what am I doing? Is this who I want to be surrounded by? Like, are they making me better? No. All right. And I just stopped talking to them. Like, literally, I cut almost everybody off, to the point where I have such a small friend circle now. And like, even relationships that get brought in, I still evaluate them, and if they don't meet up with where I want to be, or if I don't think that they're going to help me better myself, yes, I'll be civil. Yes, I'll be, friendly towards them. But am I going to, like Seven said, count on them?
Yeah, no.
Am I going to come to them for advice? Am I going to do any of that stuff? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, because
choose your own adventure kind of thing. Be who you want to be. But if it's me, I'm not going to count on you.
Yeah. Well, also we act as ambassadors to this, right? To to this mission. So it's not like if I see you're fat, then I completely not worth my time, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's there's worth there. There's a good reason to invest some time there, but like I said, don't be careful with your circle, but you should always be trying to push everybody. But at a point, if someone's not listening to you, they're not going to listen to you. If they're not going to take to heart what you're saying, then spend your time elsewhere.
Agreed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, I'm not saying this from like an elitist point to tell people to cut people out, but I like that you brought it up, Six. No, and that's what I mean, dude. I like you brought it up very like bringing up personal examples, but there needs to be more people who do that, because I've been doing that for like 25 years, and I have very few people I talk to. But I'm like, yeah, but anyone that I actually would talk to, I could. What's that movie? With Ben Affleck and Jeremy Renner, where he shows up and says, "I can't tell you what we're gonna do, but we're gonna hurt some people," and he just says, like, the town.
The town.
I'm like, okay, so
the town.
So,
oh my god, that's so great.
Exactly. So if I were to ask that to people in my phone, the response should be, "Whose car are we taking?" I'm like, if you don't line up with that,
whose car are we taking?
Exactly. I'm like, you're not worth it to me. And I agree with what you said, Seven. Just because you may be a little out of shape doesn't mean I'm going to cut you out. But if all three of these things you have never strived towards, I'm not even going to give you the time of day. Like, there's no point moving forward trying to waste my energy or my 100% energy that I'm already pouring into 100% of other things. I'm not going to do that to someone who doesn't want to help themselves.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying that the mission here is not to help people, because that's what we're doing. We are helping people. We're raising the standard. But if people can't help themselves with these three routes, if they don't have these three routes locked down, or they're not trying to lock them down, it's very easy for me to cut ties, just like you said, Six. And I've been doing that since I was like literally a teenager. It's been very easy to cut people out.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're going to hurt some people.
Whose car are we taking?
Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day. Or even There was another one I saw on stupid Instagram, just a meme. It said, I'd rather have one friend who fights like hell than 10 who talk, right? And that's the same thing,
Yeah.
right? If you don't line up with these three things, or you don't want to be better at these three things, I'm like, it's very simple to me. It's not personal. I'm just, you're not worth my time. And again,
Yeah.
it's seen as elitist.
And that's my biggest pet peeve too, is having my time wasted.
Yeah.
I think I'm better than people. I'm like, well, no, I'm putting 100% energy into lots of things, and I'm not putting 100% energy into a waste. That's just how it is.
Well, and like you said, I hate having my time wasted, but it's like, if I'm evaluating somebody, if I'm, deeming if, they're worth it to put your time into, if you're not putting, as much into your life as I am, what I mean? That's an issue.
Yeah.
Like, like you said, calling your friends group, right? I'd have guys who like all they did was play video games, or all they did was go out, or all they did was like, just veg on their phone or whatever. And it's like, dude, that's all fake. None of that is real. None of that is, measurable. It's like, you're literally just letting your life waste away. It's not worth it, man.
Yeah.
To find people that'll push you to be better. Iron sharpens iron, right? So find, your group needs to be people that are better at something than you are, so you can get better too.
Yeah. And, one of the quotes that I've actually liked from one of the worst movies out there, Tokyo Drift, after the main character totals that car in the very beginning, what's his name? Kang. He said, it's trust and character I need around me. Who you choose to be around you lets you know who you are. And one car in exchange for knowing what a man's made of, that's a price I can live with. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. Evaluate, make that choice, see what they're made of, and go from there. Like, if they're worth your time, great. If not, that was time well spent to know who they are.
Yeah, and I feel like a good starting point for people, like, just to find out yourself, is like what we said. Like, make your own list on like what is morally straight to you, or like what virtues you're not going to budge on, what virtues you're willing to lose your job over, like 7
or your non-negotiables.
Your non-negotiables, exactly. You're like, this is my black and white. I'm not going to budge on this. And then come up with whatever you deem physically strong. Come up with whatever you think mentally tough or mentally robust is, right? Because everyone's going to have their own variations of this list. It's just for us to like not only say it in a podcast form, but for us working on a bigger project that'll be presented on paper. It should be able to be used as a reference for anyone, because at any point you are going to waver from the three. Like Six said, it is work. It's effort to put in 100% effort all the time. But if you can see this list, like, we've won and we've made it a little easier for you. You shouldn't be swayed at this point.
Agreed.
100%. Yeah.
I got a quote if you guys want to end on this, because I got a good one, because we were doing all these quotes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. People are always like, oh, there's like tough men and all this stuff. Do you remember the movie Man on Fire with Denzel Washington? It's like one of my favorite movies.
Great movie.
He says there's no such thing as tough. There's trained and there's untrained. What are you? He tells it to Dakota Fanning when he's training her in the pool, and she's trying to like make the time or whatever. And she says like, oh, because he's like rough on her. And then she says, I'm tough, I can take it. And then the quote is, there's no such thing as tough. There's trained and there's untrained. What are you? So in this aspect for our roots, you have to train at this. You have to train at this every single day. You have to make it habitual. It has to just be instinctual. You have to put in work every day. This is not, you're going to grind it out. You have to put in max effort. So trained or untrained, choose what category you choose to be in. I choose to be trained or train in, because I don't think there's ever someone who's fully trained. I think you're always training, but yeah, I choose to be the man that's training.
You can always be better. And as Deadpool once said, maximum effort.
Absolutely. Trained,
untrained,
untrained, asset,
liability.
Choose your own adventure. Well, thanks for listening, guys. This has been our intro to our little project. I want to thank Nomad 7. I'm 6. We are the Hard Time Strongmen Podcast. We're training up a better class of man. Stay in the fight.